Good morning, everybody. I would like to welcome you all to our first Developmental Milestones workshop. Today we'll be covering children from birth through 36 months. And my name is Christy Shields. I'm the Parent Involvement Specialist here with the Guidance Center Head Start program. And today we have invited Michelle Mertic to come and provide the presentation for you. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Michelle and let her introduce herself.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm so glad that you took time out of your day to be here with us today. It really means a lot. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we can go ahead then and get started. All right, so let me get full screen here now, and perfect. So welcome to Milestone Matters, ages 0 to 3. So my name is Dr. Michelle Mertic, but please call me Michelle. And I am the program director of early childhood education at Baker College. Baker College is located, we have several campuses in Michigan. I am based out of the Royal Oak location. So I'm super excited to be here with you today. In addition to being the program director of early childhood education, I am also a mama. And so I've included a couple of pictures of my babies, although my babies are not babies anymore. So I am the proud mom of 3 boys. My oldest is 27. My middle son is 25, and then my baby, aka my youngest son, is 20. And it was a big year for us in 2022 as 2 of my 3 children got married last year. So the picture on the left you see is of my middle son's wedding. And then the picture on the right, my son is located in the middle of that picture, and he is the one that got married in November. So that's a little bit about me. I'd really like to know about you, and specifically the ages of your children. So I'm going to have, Christy is going to go ahead and launch a poll. And so when you see that pop up on your screen, it asks you to tell us about your children. So please go ahead and take a moment to answer that. Looks like we've got 4 out of 7 who've participated. So I'll give you another minute to jump in there. If you haven't shared about the age of your children, please do. We've got lots of choices there. All right, so let me share our results. And so we have somebody who has a little one or little ones birth to 3, and then the rest of us have children a little bit older. So that's perfect. That gives me some information going forward. So thank you for sharing that. So why are we here today? Why do we want to talk about babies and toddlers? Well, I found this video, and I think it does a really good job of explaining just why it's important, just why milestones matter, and why babies and toddlers, their period of development is so critical.
We can't wait to meet you.
You've been very chatty today.
We're only getting a few hours sleep. It's been tough.
We can look after her this evening if you want.
Would you like a song from Nana?
Early in the morning, there's a whisper in the trees. Breathe a breath of me, my child. When the world drives you, just cruise from the light.
Can you say Dada?
Breathe a breath of me,
Did you hear?
my child.
Are you going to catch me?
Waking's never easy.
Come on, you can do it.
Breathe a breath
Mummy will be back this afternoon.
It's okay to be a wee bit scared. Let's go say hi together.
And
Honey, it's good to share. Come on, you can do it.
I could plant a flower in your heart.
So that's why we're here today. 90% of brain development occurs in the first 3 years of life. That's pretty profound when you think of it. It's also profound when you think of these early experiences that children have completely shape who they're going to be as adults. So when you hear a statistic like that about brain development, or when you realize that how we nurture and love children when they're little shapes the adults that they're going to be, that's why we're here. We can't afford to not be here. We can't afford to not pay attention to the first 3 years of a child's life. So we're going to talk a little bit about what typical development looks like for babies. And I want to invite you if you have questions at any point in time, please go ahead and put those in the chat. I love questions. I would love for this to be nice and interactive. So please do. And I'll ask Christy, I'll check in with Christy if you would keep an eye on the chat for me. And I'll check in with you every so often to see if we have questions. So let's start out by talking about typical development for babies. And I love this quote. Skills such as taking a first step, smiling, and waving bye-bye are those things that we consider to be developmental milestones. Children reach milestones, as you know, in how they play, they learn, they speak, the way they act, and the way they move. What we know about development is both continuous and discontinuous. So what do we mean by that? Well, development follows a pretty predictable trajectory. We know that when babies are born, they're not going to come out of the womb and be able to walk, right? So they've got to develop that control of their neck, and then that control of their trunk, or their midsection, so they can sit up. Once they can sit up, then they get control down in their legs, where they learn how to do that awesome army crawl, and crawl and pull up to stand and then walk. So we know that development follows a pretty predictable pattern. However, we also know that development is continuous. So if I ask you, and I know some of you have children who are older, would you put in the chat for me, how old were your children when they learned how to walk? So think back to how old your children were when they learned how to walk, and go ahead and put that in the chat for me. Like, for example, for me, my oldest walked at 9 months. My middle son, I think, didn't walk until 14 or 15 months. And my youngest son, I believe it was about 13 months that he learned how to walk. Okay, so we have 10 months, 13 months, 11 or 12 months. Yeah, so that's what we mean. 10 months, first one. So that's what we mean by development being discontinuous, is that it's not an exact science. Children have individual patterns within their development. But let's take a look at development for infants. So this is what we expect to see. For gross motor, between the ages of 3 months, we should see little ones moving their arms and legs. When we say haphazardly, it is really without function. And eventually they move them and then they start to develop, oh, wait, there's my hand. And there's my leg. And they start to realize that these appendages on their body have a purpose. Between the ages of 3 to 12 months, that's when children start to bring their arms and hands together. And eventually they learn to cross the midline, so they can transfer something, excuse me, from one hand to the other hand. So, but between 3 to 12 months, they put their hands close to their eyes and mouth. And we expect to see them to lift their head up when they're on a stomach. That's why we give them that tummy time, so they can build those neck muscles and build those arm muscles. Between the ages of 6 to 9 months is when we start to see them roll, and oh, how fun that is, isn't it? They begin to roll back to front and front to back. Between the ages of 6 to 9 months is when we start to see them sit by themselves. And when we see them start to crawl, although as some of you put in the chat, you might have seen it crawling more along the lines of the 6-month age, if your babies were walking by 10 or 10 and a half months. And then between the ages of 9 months, sorry, everybody, between the ages of 9 months to a year, that's when we start to see more of those bigger muscles. When children creep over and creep around particular objects. How about those fine motor skills? So let's move in and just talk a little bit about those. So between the ages of 0 to 4 months, we expect that little ones will be able to turn their head towards sound and voices. And whose voice do they respond to first? Well, definitely mom's voice, right? They've heard
I
mom.
found this on the web.
They've heard mom's voice for the whole 9 months that they were growing and developing. So mom's voice is the voice that they prefer, but they might turn towards something loud or something that startles them, or eventually they will learn other familiar voices that they'll turn to. They love to gaze at things that interest them. We know that it takes a while for their vision to fully develop. So when babies are little, they look at patterns of light and shade, and then as their vision starts to sharpen, they look at things that are familiar to them, that fascinate them. Mom and dad's face is some of those splendid articles that they absolutely love to see. Between the ages of 4 to 8 months, we expect that children will start to grab things. So that's why we give them mobiles to sit under, or we might put a rattle out in front of them. They will flip over. They will turn things over in their hand. If you've ever seen them hold something and a baby will twist it and look at it, that's because they're trying to see what that looks like, right? They're trying to investigate. Children are sensory motor learners, so they learn by movement. So whether that's movement of their hands, movement of their bodies, and then they learn with their senses. So, raise your hand if you've ever had a baby that liked to put things in their mouth. Everybody does. And that is why. So they push themselves up while laying on their belly. Yeah, there's a hand raise. So we're very familiar with that, aren't we? We absolutely are. All right. So, and then here's some pointers between the ages of 8 months to a year, and what what especially our children can see. So then let's move into those developmental milestones for social emotional development. And these are key. These really are key, because a good foundation in social emotional development for your child is the key to their later success in school and really in life. So what does that look like for little ones? We know that between the ages of 0 to 3 months, we should see that they should be able to be consoled by a grown-up, somebody that they're comfortable and familiar with, that they should react positively to a hug, to a kiss, to love. Between the ages of 3 to 6 months is when we see those smiles, when we see those or hear those laughs. Around this age, they start to look at faces, right? And so what we see at this age too is babies have mirror neurons, which means that they look to a trusted adult to give them an indication of how to feel about things, about how to feel when they're happy, or a scary, something that feels scary to them. They'll look to an adult and mirror what they see on the adult's face. If the adult looks scared or gives the indication of being scared, that child will be scared as well. So they look to adults to see how to react. They cry when they're sad, and they look for comfort and love from adults. If you think about it, the first year of life for a little one is scary. For the first 9 months of their life, they live in their mother's womb. It is temperature controlled. They're fed whenever they want by the umbilical cord. Food goes in, waste goes out. As the 9 months progress, it gets a little tighter in there, but they have everything they need. They're soothed by their mother's sweet voice. And then what happens after that 9 months? Boom, they're born, and all of a sudden they've lost that temperature controlled environment. When they're hungry, they're not fed on demand. What do we do to them? So they come out, and we put a diaper on them, we put a t-shirt, we put a hat. And if any of you out there have ever been bothered by a tag on your shirt, would you raise your hand? If you're anything like me, or maybe a seam in your sock has been a little bit off, right? So, if you've ever been bothered by that, imagine a baby who hasn't worn clothing for the first 9 months. All of a sudden, this world is scary, sounds they've never heard before. So it is this period in the first year of life when they are really counting on you as their parent to provide that comfort to them. And then between the ages of 6 to 9 months is when we start to see those distinctions. And you can start to tell, oh, that's your angry cry. That's your sad cry. They like to play peekaboo, right? That's such a fun game to play with them. And we start to look for object permanence. It starts to develop around this age, and some a little later. But they want a toy. They get very sad when a toy that they want isn't there, isn't around them. And then let's talk about language. So we know in looking at babies and development, we know that receptive language develops before expressive language. And receptive language is those things that babies understand before they can actually say them. So for a child 6 to 9 months, we know or we expect to hear them chatter. We expect to hear those, the sounds that they make. That's their beginning language. That's how they're starting to develop sounds. They learn that by listening to you. And then they chatter because they want to participate. Babies are born with the innate ability to communicate. It's absolutely spectacular when you understand that. So this is how they talk to you. We see them, they'll laugh, they'll coo, especially at familiar individuals. If you talk to them, if you hold them and have mutual gaze where you look into their eyes and they look at yours, and you talk very softly to them and they talk back, that's what we expect to see, is those coos and those responses, that they respond to language. And then around 9 to 11 months is when we expect them to start to mirror sounds. And around 9 to 11 months is when that chatter really starts to have intonation to it. And maybe you've experienced this with your own little one, where that chatter starts to have or something along the line. Forgive my infant talk. But that's what we expect to see then as that language continues to develop. So we'll talk more about language when we get into our section on toddlers. And then I think what everybody is especially concerned about or thinking about with little ones is cognitive development. So what do we expect to see when babies are young? We expect that they'll be able to see objects, begin to anticipate events. So that they'll focus on and follow moving objects, including human faces. If you remember what I mentioned about babies when they're little, is they can't see super clear, but they can distinguish between light and dark. So they might look at a pattern that comes in the window. But as they start to realize that sort of that fuzz is my mom's face, they start to look at it and seek it. Or dad, that's their face. They start to look at it. They start to seek it out. And then what else we know about babies in their first year of life and beyond is that babies develop something, what researchers like to call schemas. And what that means in the very simplest terms is babies start to predict and understand how the world works. So when it says here, begin to anticipate events, we should start to see that they start to see a bottle coming and you may see them go. That is an example of a schema where the baby understands that when I see this happens. So that's the beginning of cognitive development. And then it continues to grow. And as you can see on your screen, between 4 to 8 months is when when they start to recognize faces and how things, particular objects look or sound or feel as they engage in that sensory motor learning. This is all the beginning stages of how they learn. So I have another poll for you because you've been listening to me talk for a little while. So this is all about babies and light. So Christy, go ahead and launch what I call poll number 2. And this is less of a poll and more of just did you know? So take a gander. When do babies first respond to light? Do you think it's at 20 weeks, 28 weeks, or 30 weeks? So don't be afraid to take a guess. This is just something for fun. So we've got about 5 out of 10 who have responded. The other 5 of you, don't be afraid, jump in there. Take a guess. So it looks like everybody's leaning more towards 20 weeks. So let's share a result. So the majority of you said 20 weeks. You're almost right. But for those of you who said 28 weeks gestation, you are correct. Pretty cool, isn't it? To think that within 28 weeks, a fetus can already see light. So when we think about cognitive development in babies, it's actually starting before they're even born. Isn't that spectacular? When I sit and think about how miraculous babies are, it just blows my mind. Now, in the video that I showed you in the very beginning, the video from Shaping Us, which is an initiative that came from over in England, when you saw the baby, you saw the colors in the baby's brain. And those colors signify that brain development, that learning about the world and learning and growing. And we'll talk more about that learning later. But it's continuous. It's amazing what occurs in a first year of life. All right, so I'm going to stop here and just check in and see if anybody has any questions about typical development for babies. Christy, any questions within the chat?
Nope, not yet.
Okay. All right. Don't forget, if you have any questions, be sure to put those in. Now we're going to shift gears and just spend a little bit of time talking about atypical development. So what should I be worried about if I have an infant? So let's take a look at atypical development. So gross motor development. What we worry about in the first year is a child not turning their head to both sides. Now remember, development is discontinuous, so this might occur at any point in time. Now, number 2, when it says child feels hardened, what that means is just that we should see the development of muscle tone and growth, as I explained earlier, how when we give babies tummy time, they complain like mad because they don't like it, but eventually they can pick their head up. They can raise up a little bit onto their arms. We want to see that development of muscles and that muscle tone. What we don't want to see, though, we want to see them respond to touch and melt into a loved one or caregiver's arms. We don't want to see them stiff. If a child is not meeting their achievements, if a baby uses one side more than the other, if we worry if a baby has abilities but then loses those abilities. What about fine motor? So eventually we want to see children using both of their hands, right? We want to see them to grasp. We want to see them open. We talk about with babies looking at something called the palmar grasp with their hands open. And when you put maybe your finger there, that they close around it. So we worry if we don't see that. If a child eventually can't push themselves up. And then by 12 months, we worry if a child can't grasp an object, doesn't bring toys up to their mouth, because we expect them to be sensory motor learners. And one of their senses is their sense of taste. So that's why they put everything in their mouth, because they're learning about it. So we worry if they don't, or if babies can't bang toys together. Again, with that, we talk about crossing that midline. And so we worry if they don't do that. So those are just a couple of things. What about atypical social emotional development? We worry if babies don't react to sounds, that if they don't smile or react to you in the manner in which you anticipate, or babies that might resist close contact or snuggling. And by 12 months, we expect that babies should be interested in other children, right? They watch, they look and see. So we worry if we don't see that again, they don't react to you in the manner in which in which you think they should. And if they have a hard time waiting, if they have a hard time sitting tight, we worry about that. If cognitive, so what do we worry about? We want them to be able to track things with their eyes. We want them, again, to react to sounds, because this is all part of learning. In order for a child to learn, they have to be able to see it, hear it, that they don't repeat activities that bring them happiness. If you've ever seen a child, if you've ever had a baby sitting in a high chair and seen where they like to throw things off their tray, you pick up a toy, you put it on their tray, what do? They drop it. That's pleasurable to them. They like that. You might not like that, but they like that, right? That's important to them. They're learning about the world. So we want them to see, we're looking for that. By 12 months is when babies should have developed object permanence. And what that means is that they know if I take an object and I cover it with a blanket, that object is still there. So by 12 months, we worry if babies don't understand object permanence. We want them to experiment with activities, that they understand that I'm going to bang objects together, it's going to make a noise. And again, that they don't show interest in different kids their age. And then what about language? Language is all about connection. It is all about what we like to call serve and return. If you've ever played tennis, serve and return. I hit a ball to you, you hit a ball to back. Serve and return is the same when we're talking about infants and adults. I talk to you, you talk back to me. That's how babies learn about their words. They've got to see you, they watch you, they connect with you. So speaking of serve and return interaction, I have a really quick video that I want to show you. And so I have to make an adjustment again. And there we go. So we're going to take just a minute and watch this. This video is from the Center on the Developing Child through Harvard. And that sounds way more ominous than it is. Let's take a look.
The key to forming strong brain architecture is what's known as serve and return interaction with adults. In this developmental game, new neural connections form in the brain as young children instinctively serve through babbling, facial expressions, and gestures. And adults return the serve, responding in a very directed, meaningful way. It starts very early in life, when a baby coos and the adult interacts and directs the baby's attention to a face or hand. This interaction forms the foundation of brain architecture upon which all future development will be built. It helps create neural connections between all the different areas of the brain, building the emotional and cognitive skills children need in life. For example, here's how it works for literacy and language skills. When the baby sees an object, the adult says its name. This makes connections in the baby's brain between particular sounds and their corresponding objects. Later, adults show young children that those objects and sounds can also be represented by marks on a page. With continued support from adults, children then learn how to decipher writing and eventually to write themselves. Each stage builds on what came before. Ensuring that children have adult caregivers who consistently engage in serve and return interaction, beginning in infancy, builds a foundation in the brain for all the learning, behavior, and health that follow.
Absolutely awesome to think that just a simple act of talking with your baby can make all the difference in their development. I want to pause here and see if anybody has a question or comment or anything about atypical development. Christy, anything in the chat?
Let's see. There is one comment. It says, my grandson is delayed due to the pandemic. Now the doctor is saying he is autistic. He is 3, but delayed to half his age, nonverbal, but he talks. Okay, so it wasn't a question. It was just a comment.
I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, it's the pandemic really, one of the many detrimental effects that we've found is on babies, toddlers, and preschoolers. You know, if we think about it, for almost 3 years of their life, they may have been isolated from others, or if they were in care. And I think some programs, they still might be in care with individuals who are wearing a mask. So you can't see, you're missing half of that connection, right? So they're not able to look at facial expressions because there's a mask, or they weren't exposed to a lot of individuals because they had to be kept at home. So I appreciate you sharing that. I feel so bad for parents of little ones, because unfortunately we've got a lot of work to do to help them catch up. Yeah. Anything else, Christy?
Okay, we have another comment. My baby refuses to drink milk out of a sippy cup, only water out of a sippy cup. Any suggestion? Also, she's a year old and not walking yet. Is that normal?
Okay. So let's talk about the not walking at 12 months. It's completely normal. Remember, as I mentioned earlier, development is discontinuous, which means there isn't a magical number. And unfortunately, when we talk about milestones, I always get a little weary about them, because I don't want parents to worry. So please don't worry that your daughter is not walking at 12 months. When she's ready, she'll walk. It's just the way that development is. There's so much that plays into it. And believe it or not, I could do a whole nother session talking to you about temperament in babies and toddlers, and that plays into when they're ready to get up and to move. I can use the example of my own children. My firstborn is a real go-getter, right? And he's the one that walked at 9 months. So his temperament, which is easy, flexible, go with the flow, ready for anything, really translated into when he walked. My middle son, who is his temperament is slow to warm, meaning he likes to stay back. He's not that go-getter. He's going to step back. He's going to watch. When he's ready, he'll get in and jump in, but he steps back and watches. So isn't it interesting that that he is the one that waited until he was 15 months to walk. And it'll happen for your daughter. You know, as far as the sippy cup, honestly, I only drinking water out of it, I wouldn't worry about that either. I know you might have people who say that, you know, she's a year old, she needs water. But, you know, if we think about it, milk. So remember when I mentioned about schemas and how children learn about the world? So what I'm guessing is your daughter has developed a schema: milk, bottle. So milk and bottle is her schema. Milk and sippy cup is not. And that's okay. That's okay. Please don't worry about that. Yeah, your little one, she's good. Let's talk about what you have to look forward to, because we're going to move into talking about terrific toddlers in the time that we have left. I love toddlers, and notice that I have labeled this terrific toddlers because toddlers are absolutely terrific. So I'm not going to read all of these to you, but I want to show you. These are milestones that we expect to see with toddlers, right? They can feed themselves. Sorry. They can feed themselves, right? They can put pegs into a pegboard. They can turn the pages of a book. So all of a sudden, when you have this infant in their first year of life who really is dependent on you, toddlers come and they're ready to go, right? They are ready to make it happen. They love to scribble with crayons. They love to turn things, right? So they do all those things. So in the first year of life, you know, when we do tummy time for babies, you know, it's all about strengthening these muscles. In order for a child eventually to be able to write, they have to have strong muscles, and we develop these muscles. So when you invite your toddlers to turn, to twist, to turn things, remind yourself that they're developing their writing muscles is what they're doing. So we want to give them an opportunity to throw a ball, to paint, to take a piece of string and a bead, to give them a fork and spoon and let them experience feeding themselves. So all of these things that we expect toddlers to do are all helping get them ready eventually for writing their name, and writing words and letters for school. So fine motor skills are what we call their little muscles. Again, remember, gross motor skills are their big muscles. So this is what we expect to see in toddlers. So really 12, 15 months, this is when we start to see them walking independently. You may see them start to run, or they really develop those running, you know, you got to walk before you run. They'll jump with 2 feet. We expect them to be able to jump from the bottom step. You may even see them understand how to ride a tricycle using the pedals. Now, probably the area that gets the most attention for toddlers is language. And so by the age of 2, between 1 and 2, but especially by the age of 2 is when we expect some language in children. We expect them to have the receptive language, which, if you remember, is the words that they understand before they say. So we expect them to recognize their name, to understand the word no, not that they'll comply because they're toddlers. And that's developmentally appropriate. They understand that you're saying no. We expect that they will understand simple instructions, that they may point to say what they want, that they can say by 2 and especially by 3, we expect them to be able to say words, to combine 2 words together, like me, eat, mommy, go. We also expect that they can make their wants and needs recognizable, like more, cup, juice, or up. That they, especially by the time they're 3, can make 2 to 3 word sentences. And this is more cognitive, but we expect that they can, they will be able to match some colors. So we're gonna do another poll, but before we do that, I just wanted to peek in. Okay, so Sue, you are welcome, Sue. Sue said thank you. The doctor had me worried, saying I needed to ditch the bottle. Sue, it's fine. It's, you know, it'll happen, Sue. Again, temperament's is a big deal. And not knowing your daughter, she's going to decide when it's time. So Laura asked a question about when, and this is going back to gross motor development. When do children typically learn how to jump? So Laura, we say by 3, they should be able to jump with 2 feet. And when I say jump, I say more of the hopping. So we don't expect them to be able to do it on 1 foot, but by the time they're 3, they should be able to jump. When do children start using a spoon and fork to feed themselves? Start right away, Sue. And not that they're going to be able to successfully master it, but starting at 1, I would give them a spoon. And eventually, remember, it's all about development of those motor skills. So in the first year of life, you give it to them and they may hold it and eat with their hands, that's okay. But eventually you'll want to help them and to show them how to scoop their food. Spoons are the easiest thing to start with because they can at least get one on there. And even if they scoop it and use their hand to help, by 2, they should have an easier time with being able to use utensils. And really by 3, they should be able to understand how to use a utensil. But really, it is all about them having exposure to it early. So we give them those developmentally appropriate little forks and little spoons so that they can do it. Thanks for the questions, everybody. All right, so we now have another poll or a question about language development. So Christy, go ahead and launch poll number 3. All right, so this is just a true and false. Language development is a socially interactive process. Would you please say true, answer true, or false? All right. We have 6. Oh, 7, 8. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll because you all know that the answer to that is absolutely true. Language development is a socially interactive process. Absolutely is. So we had one more question come up about gross motor development. I hope you don't mind, Christy. I just jumped into the chat to look. Is there a specific age when you should become concerned about gross motor skill development? say the child isn't hopping by 3 or 4. I always recommend to err on the side of caution, that if you do have a particular concern, to reach out to your pediatrician. But then on the other hand, I would look at what else the child is doing. If they're meeting every other developmental milestone for gross motor development, I wouldn't worry about it. Let's think about hopping and how hard that is. It's hard to hop, right? It's hard to get that up and down motion and hop. So always ask your pediatrician if you have a concern, but also look at the other developmental milestones for that age group. Now, cognitive development, as a child continues to grow and develop, and we know that brain architecture is continuing to grow. What do we expect to see? We expect to see them enjoy music and dancing. Music is one of the best things that you can do to build those cognitive skills. Think about music, and music has syncopation, music has beat to it, right? And did you know that listening to music and understanding that syncopation and that beat helps with math skills eventually? So listening to music is important. Reading to children. We saw in the video naming objects, and I know I'm running. I know we have only about 5 minutes left, so I want to talk about social emotional development. And again, because it is the key to their later success in school and in life. We expect that children will recognize themselves in a mirror or photo, and they should look at them. They should be able to look at themselves and their facial expressions, that they'll copycat adults' words and actions. Remember, we expect that toddlers will have rapid mood swings. It's developmentally appropriate. As much as it might drive you crazy, it's developmentally appropriate. We see that toddlers start to get more scared or more fearful of things, like they're scared of the dark. And then you may see your toddler all of a sudden start to become shy, or even start to whine when they didn't do so. If your child is in care and they loved going and all of a sudden they don't want to go, that can be developmentally appropriate, because again, it is it's all part of learning about those big feelings and those big emotions. So I'm going to have Christy go ahead and launch our last question, aka our last poll. Toddlers have the ability to manage their own emotions. Is that true or is that false? All right. So go ahead and answer that question for me. Okay. So in the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results. And the majority of you said that toddlers, that is false, that toddlers have the ability to manage their own emotions, right? False is the correct answer. They don't. How do they learn how to manage those big emotions? They learn it from their trusted adults. Their trusted adults teach them. Their trusted adults let them know that it's okay to have those big feelings. But then what do we do with those big feelings? It's probably the most important job. In the interest of time, I'm not going to show you. There's a great little video from the Center for Early Childhood in England, who did the Shaping Up initiative about managing feelings. And just talking just atypical development. Atypical really for toddlers is a child not meeting their milestones. And as I've shared earlier, development is discontinuous. But if you do have a question about your child's development, it's always good to reach out to your pediatrician, reach out to a trusted adult. I know the folks who are with Nurture the Future definitely have some great resources that they can share. The best thing you can do, everyone, to help your child meet their milestones is to play with them. Play with them, have fun with them. You don't need expensive toys. You don't need specialty videos. You just need to talk to them, read to them, and play with them.
Thank you, Michelle. I just want to say that we really enjoyed your presentation. And for everyone that is here today, I did put a link in the chat. If you could take a moment to fill out the survey for us, we would